Capricorn Sun and Rising. Welcome to your June 2023 Astro Update. I'm Raina, and June is another active month. We have just come through the eclipse season from April and May, and now that we're in June, you would think we would just be like catching a breath. Well, of course we are, but there are still a lot of important things that are going on. So on the 3rd of the month, we have a full moon at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. Sag is the sign right before you, so this is going to occur in your 12th house, and this is a house of contemplation. This is also the house of self-undoing. So addiction is a big piece in this, and a full moon can be a time of letting go, of release. So it is a great time to let go of a bad habit, for sure. And also have a lot of self-awareness at a spiritual level. You know, self-awareness is one of those things where we sometimes can see how we're behaving, the things that we're doing that we're not proud of, or, you know, that are just hard to kind of get beyond, and it can be great to just let that go. But the 12th house is also the house of past lives, of karma. So it's very all-encompassing, and it is, because it's the house of escapism, and that's why it's connected with addiction. It can be one of those situations where a person can see very clearly how they are sabotaging themselves and how they're running away from their problems. A full moon can give you that kind of spiritual download. So it's like these insights that are coming from something beyond the mind. This is the house of the dream state. So you may be extra psychic right now, Capricorn. On the 5th of the month, we have Venus going into Leo, and for you, this is the 8th house, okay? So Venus has been in your opposite sign of Cancer for a little while now, and that, you know, if you're listening in May and, you know, going into the first week in June, that is harmonizing this house of relationships. And it's also good for any kind of legal matter, because the 7th house can be legal affairs. But when it's in the 8th house, this is the house of shared resources. So since Venus can be connected to money, this could be some kind of money that's coming to you from, if you've been like going through a divorce, it could be through your ex-partner, or even like a breaking up of a business, like a partnership in the business. Then you could be receiving money from that. Any kind of debt, I mean, maybe you're able to pay off a debt or something along those lines. Inheritance can be the 8th house. And this is also a great time to really dive deep with a partner, because Venus is romantic, but the 8th house is very, I would call it cathartic in a sense, but it's very probing, and it's like shadow work, but it's with that other person where you're bearing your soul to one another. On the 11th, Pluto goes back into your sign of Capricorn, and Mercury goes into Gemini. So let's just talk about Mercury and Gemini. This is falling in your 6th house of work. So you had Mars here back in the, you know, ending at the beginning. No, actually ending in March. But you had it for 7 months. So there might have been some kind of, maybe it's even some kind of a legal matter that pertains to your business, to your work. And maybe that's what that Venus in the eighth house is all about, or even the seventh house, that you receive some kind of compensation. If it was some kind of work, um, if there was some kind of a lawsuit against your employer or your workplace, or even if it was with mediation or something like that. So Mercury here can be also for somebody who is speaking to a potential employer, scouring the help wanted posts online or what have you. This could be some kind of work as it pertains to education, but I think also the sixth house is health, so you may be reading about health, and maybe diet is coming up for you for some reason. Pluto going back into Capricorn means that you're still are not done reforming yourself. And you're going to have another one of these retrogrades in 2024 before the final exit from Capricorn in November of 2024, and then onto your second house for 20 years. So this is an internalized process when you have Pluto retrograding. So this is about shadow work. This is about not looking to the outer world of like blaming for something that is coming up for you, because you have had years now to really work on yourself. But sometimes when we work on ourselves, it's not just about ourselves. It's about other people, right? Sometimes other people are playing into our negative experiences. So, for instance, when you go to a therapist and they say, well, tell me about your childhood, you're not just going to talk about yourself, you're going to talk about other people, maybe traumatic events that were committed by other people. But now this is about excavating yourself. And I don't know when Pluto goes direct, but Pluto is an outer planet. The main thing is the fact that it's in the first house. That is the big deal, that, the big news. On the 17th, Saturn goes retrograde at 7 degrees of Pisces. And this is a friendly angle for you called the sextile, and it is affecting your third house. This is where Saturn has been, and this is the house of teaching, learning, acquiring skills, communication, media, social media, your mind. That's a big one, because when Saturn is in the third house, you may feel this desire to start meditating, and you may even parlay it into a career if other factors support that. And in Pisces, is there any better sign to do something like that than Pisces? I think not. So that could be a big development for you. But Saturn is going retrograde, so something is making you think twice. Maybe this has to do with work matters. If you are in the field of education, with Mercury in the sixth house, you might get some kind of offer. But you may be having second thoughts, especially if you have started some new job and you're not quite enthused by the way things are going. So if there's anything that you have to do, like coursework in school to get a certification or whatever, but you're on the job as well, you may be disillusioned by that, and you have to kind of adjust what's going on. Now, on the 18th, we have a new moon at 26 degrees of Gemini. So once again, we're talking about this area of the workplace where you have Mercury recently entered. And so that's why I say there could be a new job that that transpires during this time, but somewhere along the way during the Saturn retrograde, it may be that it's not all it's cracked up to be, and you're like, why am I putting all my emphasis on this area of life? Saturn being in the third house, because maybe you're training. I feel like when Saturn is in the third house, that sometimes people are trying to get some kind of certification for something. And so an example would be, let's say you want to become a teacher. Saturn in the third house would be perfect for that. And you get a job as a teacher's assistant during this last half of June. And you go into the summer school program and you start dealing, firsthand with the students, and it's not what it's cracked up to be. Maybe in the literature, and actually, that might not be the best example, because the third house isn't necessarily like the ninth house would be university training, and that would be more to get a teaching certificate. This could be something, maybe it's in healthcare, and you thought you wanted to become a massage therapist. I'm using that example because that's what happened with me. I thought I was just kind of like dabbling, trying, throwing things against the wall and seeing what would stick before I decided to become a professional astrologer and tarot reader. I just started taking these, like, and that would be a perfect third house kind of thing to do, being a massage therapist. And I thought that was something that would be really cool and spiritual and all of that good stuff, and not take too long. And I went to a program that was supposed to be very reputable, and I'm sitting there, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought, God, would it be gross? I just thought it would be gross to touch people. And we had to, we were going to have to practice on each other. And I didn't necessarily want people touching me. So I figured that I probably was in the wrong place. So I only lasted a few days. So it could be something like that, and at the very least, if you're like working hard towards something, sometimes we have to kind of pause and reflect and maybe take a breather and then regroup. Because sometimes, there are certain people, I don't think that Capricorn is necessarily this type of person. You are a cardinal sign, but you're not a fixed sign. Unless you have other planets, like maybe you have a Mars in Aquarius, where you stick to your guns and you're just going to just do, if you set your mind to something, you're going to do it, you get set in your ways. That's a different story. But I think in general that isn't necessarily what Capricorn is all about. Because sometimes, we do change our opinion on something, and that's not a crime. It's very odd to me that people get so rigid when it comes to, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. That's not really, being flexible is very important in life. So, anywho, this new moon could be all about work, and then, whether or not this is something that you want to do forever. This is a sixth house. So it's not the house of career, which is the house that you rolled, the 10th house, but, it can give you some ideas at the very least. You might have new seeds of intention planted in the direction of the work that you're doing. On the 21st, we have the summer solstice at 9:57 a.m. Central Standard Time. This is when the sun goes into Cancer, and in this, obviously down under, you have the winter solstice. And so if you are somewhere. I think pretty much everywhere it's going to be on the 21st. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be on the 22nd. I could be wrong. I think there are some places that are like 16 hours ahead of me, so maybe it's on the 22nd for you. But anyway, this is a power period. This is your opposite house. You've already had transits running through here. I'm talking about personal planets, namely Venus and Mars. So you've already had a little bit of that. But on the 26th, Mercury goes into this area. So, could be paperwork. And that includes signing a divorce decree. And this is the post Mercury retrograde period. So that's pretty good for, signing stuff and, not having to worry about it. Some people could be planning a wedding and getting the wedding license. But, everybody is on a different path, and the transits can affect them almost diametrically opposed in terms of the actions that people are undertaking. So it's all good. But anything that involves legal documents or talking to somebody, negotiations are very seventh house-esque. And then on the 30th, Neptune turns retrograde again in that third house. This could be especially if you've been, because you have Neptune in Pisces at the moment in that house of the mind. And so that is very psychic and spiritual, but it can be diluted. So sometimes the person is having ideas that are not practical. Their communication can be very, geared towards the trying to, being very, very idealistic with your ideas. And when you're communicating to other people, there may be the distortion that Neptune can bring. So the rose-colored glasses mentality, in other words. Well, this is the retrograde, so it kind of is this reality check. And that is not a bad thing. Actually, Capricorns would be suck it up buttercup about something like that. So I'm sure you won't be too disappointed. But again, if you were going into getting some sort of certificate, you may see that in some cases that it isn't what you signed up for, and that can feel very disillusioning. But because your ruler Saturn is here, it makes it easier. I'm sorry, not Saturn. Saturn. Because your ruler Saturn is here, it makes it easier for you to accept it because Saturn is very realistic and wants to be disciplined and wants to have boundaries. And Neptune is the exact opposite of that. Neptune doesn't want boundaries. So they're kind of like in this same sign, but operating differently. And sometimes that can be very disorientating. But on the plus side, it can be the best of both worlds. You get an imaginative mind, but you also get a mind that wants to discipline itself. Okay, that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that this resonated. You know what's? Oh no, You know what I was thinking? I was thinking of. Oh my God, I forgot to tell Capricorn about their full moon, but that's actually in the beginning of July. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.